It's hurtful, it's painful that our lives are being used as political pawns.
The fate of the DACA program remains unclear after the Supreme Court declines to rule on whether to phase it out starting next month. The man who vows to build the wall is coming to San Diego to check on its progress. President Donald Trump is scheduled to make the trip next month. And a look behind the scenes of an opera whose princess has a heart of stone and the challenges of staging such a massive production. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The ACLU has filed a lawsuit in San Diego federal court saying the U.S. government illegally separated an asylum-seeking mother from her 7-year-old daughter. KPBS Frontiers reporter Jean Guerrero says it's just one of dozens of family separation cases.
The asylum-seeking mother and daughter came to San Diego from the Democratic Republic of Congo. U.S. officials took the girl from her mom, then sent her 2,000 miles away to a facility in Chicago, where she remains. The mom is detained in Otay Mesa. The Trump administration has said it plans to separate families as a policy, a dramatic change in immigration policy to deter more immigrants and asylum seekers from coming to the U.S. ACLU attorney Lee Gallant says this violates due process rights under the Constitution.
The child is being used as a pawn in a public policy experiment by the administration to see if they can deter asylum seekers from coming to the United States by taking away their children.
The American Academy of Pediatrics says the separation can cause long-term mental health damage to the children. Homeland Security declined to comment. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Today, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected the Trump administration's request to immediately rule on the future of DACA. Trump wanted the Supreme Court to rule on DACA and bypass a federal appeals court. The Trump administration wanted to start phasing out the program starting next month, but it's blocked from doing so by lawsuits. The DACA program protects hundreds of thousands of young immigrants from deportation. And about 40,000 of those DACA recipients live here in San Diego. That's according to Alliance San Diego, a local human rights organization. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spoke to one DACA recipient who works for the nonprofit about the Supreme Court's decision.
Itzel Guillen says she moved to the U.S. in 1999 before enrolling in DACA in 2013.
At a personal level, it's very difficult to wake up every single morning not knowing whether I should be applying to grad school or not, or whether I will be living here with my family or not.
Guillen works at Alliance San Diego, helping immigrants like herself obtain legal status in the U.S.
This morning, when I woke up and read the news, I felt a sense of relief.
She believes the Supreme Court's decision not to hear the appeal is a small victory.
I know that tomorrow we will wake up again, and that uncertainty will be right back because we don't have a permanent solution.
During a governor's roundtable at the White House Monday, President Trump addressed DACA.
We'd like to help DACA. I think everybody in this room wants to help with DACA. But the Supreme Court just ruled that it has to go through the normal channels.
Guillen is not buying the president's words.
The decision to even end the program in the way that it happened in September 5th of last year in no way helps dreamers. So when I hear statements that are very contradicting from this administration, it's hurtful, it's painful that our lives are being used as political pawns.
Back in September, Trump had set a March 5th deadline to end the DACA program. For now, though, DACA renewals will be accepted indefinitely. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
President Donald Trump is heading to San Diego next month to check on the border wall prototypes. The San Diego UT reports he will learn more about the construction of the 8 structures being tested by Homeland Security. President Trump has been critical of the state and its immigration policy. He threatened to pull out Border Patrol agents last week. This will mark the president's first trip to San Diego and the border area since being elected. As of this Friday, San Diego will have a new police chief. The San Diego City Council today unanimously confirmed department veteran David Nislight. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen is downtown with an update. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Ebony. Well, as you said, he was confirmed unanimously. The hearing took place this afternoon. It lasted about 2.5 hours. Dozens of community members got up and spoke. Most of them were in favor of Nislight. They said they admire his experience, 30 years in the department. They also said they feel he's accessible, that when he meets with them, he listens to their concerns. Now, some speakers didn't speak against him per se, but just said that while he is saying a lot of the right things about being transparent and accountable to the community, they want to see those words backed up with actions. A big concern among a lot of speakers was racially biased policing in San Diego. Now, that's something that Nislight himself spoke directly to just before his confirmation hearing was getting started. Here's what he said.
I want to talk about racial profiling in AB 953. I'm well aware of the concerns voiced by members of the community who don't believe our criminal justice system treats them favorably or equally. I want you to know I'm committed to working with you in repairing community trust. In July of this year.
And now, Ebony, that law he was referring to requires all police departments in California to start collecting more data on the police interactions with people and the races of the people that they stop for traffic violations, for example. As you said, Nislight will be starting his new job on Friday. I think we can expect a lot more details coming out about changes that he'll be making to the department, and specifically how he plans to recruit more officers and fill the ranks with police officers, sworn officers in the police department, which of course they have a very long time shortage of police officers here in San Diego. Reporting outside the city administration building, Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Very interesting. Thanks, Andrew. No endorsement for any congressional candidate at this weekend's Democratic convention, but State Senate leader Kevin De Leon outpolled longtime incumbent Dianne Feinstein. The top two finishers in the June 5th primary face off in November, regardless of party affiliation. Polls suggest with the current field of candidates, it's unlikely a Republican will make it to the November ballot. Police are investigating threatening graffiti messages found at Rancho Bernardo High School this morning. Police say about 20 messages were spray painted on walls around the school campus. They apparently made reference to the deadly school shooting in Florida earlier this month. Today's incident is the latest in a series of threats at San Diego schools since that shooting in Florida, where 17 people were killed. 2 teenagers were arrested last week for allegedly making threatening statements, but police have not released specific details about those threats. San Diego could soon see even more cases from the Navy's Fat Leonard bribery scandal. Navy lawyers in Virginia asked the judge to move the first court-martial here. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh has this report.
Navy prosecutors asked a judge today to move the case of Commander David Morales from Norfolk to San Diego. Morales is the first officer to go to trial before a military court in the wide-ranging Navy corruption scandal involving defense contractor Leonard Francis. The military judge took the motion under advisement. Moving the case to San Diego would give prosecutors access to key witnesses such as Francis. A steady stream of naval officers have been found guilty in federal court in San Diego since the man they called Fat Leonard was arrested here in 2013. Nearly 5 years later, the government continues to accuse more naval officers of taking bribes in exchange for steering Navy ships to his ports. Francis pleaded guilty in 2015. His sentencing has been postponed several times and is now set for June 15. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Consumer groups are blasting a proposal by the Trump administration to expand the scope of short-term health insurance plans. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says critics believe the proposal is yet another attempt to undermine the Affordable Care Act.
Short-term health insurance plans are not required to provide the same benefits as Obamacare policies. These plans can exclude coverage for certain health conditions and can limit days in the hospital. They can only be sold for a coverage period of 3 months. The Trump administration has proposed expanding the coverage period to 364 days. Jamie Court, president of the nonprofit Consumer Watchdog, says that's a bad idea.
These are exactly the type of junk health insurance plans that Obamacare targeted for extinction. And the fact that Trump's bringing them back is very dangerous.
A bill has been introduced in the state Senate that would prohibit insurers from selling short-term health plans in California. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
President Trump has promised to cut back on regulations in all sectors, but some are questioning the wisdom of rolling back regulations aimed at making transportation in the country safer.
Nearly 3 years after a crash that killed his wife, 2 stepdaughters, and mother-in-law, Rick Watts still wonders if it could have been prevented.
Words can't describe what we've all gone through because of this. Had that speed been governed a little bit, could have made a huge difference in the crash.
A tractor-trailer was going about 80 miles per hour, 25 miles above the truck speed limit, when it slammed into a highway backup in Chattanooga, Tennessee. In response to the crash and similar ones, the government in 2016 proposed requiring new heavy trucks be equipped with software to limit speeds. The Department of Transportation at the time estimated it would save as many as 498 lives per year. But now that safety plan is on hold, part of a sweeping rollback of regulations that President Donald Trump says hurt the economy.
No president has ever cut so many regulations in their entire term, okay? As we've cut in less than a year.
Since the president took office, an Associated Press review of the Transportation Department's regulatory actions shows at least a dozen safety rules have now been repealed, withdrawn, or put on the back burner. At the same time, the department has not adopted any significant new safety rules.
We have deep concerns that President Trump's pledge to roll back public health and safety regulations is going to put the public at risk. Public health and safety regulations save lives. They prevent injuries.
DOT declined repeated requests for an on-camera interview. But they maintain they can reduce regulation without undermining safety, and that new administrations typically take a fresh look at rules. In addition to the speed limiter on trucks, the DOT withdrew an early-stage rule requiring that train engineers and commercial truck and bus drivers be screened for sleep apnea. The National Transportation Safety Board has identified untreated sleep apnea as the cause in at least 13 accidents, including a commuter train crash in Brooklyn last year. A rule banning shipments of rechargeable lithium batteries on passenger planes because of fire dangers has now been pulled back. The department says a new version is expected soon. And late last year, DOT repealed a 2015 rule requiring train cars hauling highly flammable crude oil be equipped with advanced braking systems. Union officials say the rule could prevent deadly runaway trains, like the one in Canada that ignited in 2013. DOT says the cost outweighs the benefits.
They're certainly prioritizing reducing costs and reducing burden. I think particularly with Department of Transportation, their big thing is they want to make sure that businesses can still innovate.
But those affected by past disasters are concerned at what cost.
I want to make it safer. I don't want people to have to go through what I went through. Because what I went through, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Watts says he's already paid the ultimate price. Padmanandarama, The Associated Press.
As this cold trend continues, we are expecting rain and thunderstorms as early as tonight. Erin Calandra has the forecast.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed your day today. Thank you for joining us. We are going to see a change in our weather. It's a bit cool right now, but we do have some wet weather heading in our direction. Right now, not much happening across the county. Nothing popping up on our satellite or radar, but that's going to change tonight. A couple of clouds lingering in places, but see this storm to the north of us? It is pushing down to the south. This is a cold front heading in our direction, so it's going to get chilly, and we're even going to see some showers and some mountain snow is expected. Tomorrow, we could even see a couple of thunderstorms popping up. So for tonight, expect it to be a relatively wet night with some showers. Temperatures at 51 degrees. Across the region, everyone here is going to see that wet weather. Oceanside, Poway, San Diego, Alpine. Mount Laguna, again, expect some snow, 28 degrees there, so a very chilly night. It should stay dry in Borrego Springs, but it's going to be awfully gusty through the desert, so be careful if you are driving. A low pressure system, that's what's steering traveling, driving, our weather here. It's going to be pushing off to the east tomorrow, but it's going to be a wet day tomorrow at times, and again, could even see some thunderstorms. If you're traveling to the north, say taking the I-5, heading up north, the Grapevine, we do expect to see snow and some delays through there. And the Sierras, well, they're going to get some snow as well. So for us, again, it's going to be a stormy day in San Diego tomorrow. Some rain in San Diego, the interior areas, some rumbles of thunder should be expected. That's even into Borrego Springs. Mount Laguna, again, we are expecting a little bit of snow. Temperatures below average in the 50s, even in the 40s. Here's the futurecast. You can see 5 o'clock p.m. That's tonight. It's already raining in Los Angeles, reaching us during those overnight hours, and it's not going to really clear out of the area until around 7 o'clock at night. This is good because it's dry. Look how dry it is here. We need the wet weather. Any kind of rain is a good thing. And then by late week, well, we could see another round heading in our direction. Another storm is heading down. So Wednesday, Thursday, drier. Friday, expect showers along the coast. That's going to be the same story for inland. Temperatures are going to stay a bit cool. In the mountains, more mountain snow on Friday. And then in the deserts, it should stay dry but chillier than usual. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Ebony, back to you.
Any opera is a challenge to produce, but the director of San Diego Opera's Turandot had to cope with a heroine she didn't initially understand, as well as sets and costumes coming from 2 other productions. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando looks at how all of these elements came together to make a beautiful show.
Grand opera is a big production. It's not something you just casually decide to tackle. Katura Sticken knew she would have her hands full taking on Puccini's Turandot for the first time.
Turandot's a huge show. That's the long and short of it. Turandot is huge. It's deceptively large. There's an awful lot of chorus. We have a unit set, so it's one of those sets that doesn't change a lot in between acts, and so trying to find what our pathway is through the show with all of these people that we have to move around and still tell a coherent story is the hardest thing that I have to put together.
Bringing San Diego Opera's production of Turandot to life required 400 cast and crew members. The cost of mounting Grand Opera is daunting too. So to maximize resources, companies often share sets and costumes. But Sticken had to figure out how to make these sets from a Chicago production and these costumes from a Santa Fe one fit into her vision for the opera.
I had to take those and then put the sets in one place and the costumes in one place and sort of make a little Venn diagram about all of it and see where they all fit in the middle. But it's a constant balancing act of, okay, well, this is how you want to tell this, but it's not going to play on this set, and this costume isn't going to allow you to do it this way.
But that kind of creative challenge can lead to exciting results.
This set has never seen this telling. It's never seen these costumes. These costumes have never been on this set. So in that way, it's actually kind of an interesting box that you put yourself in. You kind of have to just press up against the sides and see how far you can expand it.
Which brings us to the character of Turandot, an alluring Chinese princess who subjects all her suitors to 3 riddles. If they fail to answer them correctly, they're executed, says tenor Carl Tanner.
Everyone's lost their lives that have pined for her before. All have failed the riddles before. And Kalof is just brazen enough, just stupid enough to think that he can do this.
Bringing the title character to life is something soprano Lisa Lindstrom has done many times over the years.
I love the challenge of bringing the humanity to the character. Lots of Puccini heroines have their hearts on their sleeves all night. Turandot does not. Turandot's heart is buried in a block of ice that has to be slowly melted throughout the night.
And each time, the challenge is a little different. For this production, Sticken struggled with bringing the character to life in the midst of a Me Too movement.
There is nothing feminist about this story.
It's about a woman who hates men because all she knows of them is as aggressors who've raped and pillaged. So to take revenge, she decides to kill every man who can't answer her riddles. But then one man answers the riddles. She refuses to marry him. He forcibly kisses her, and then she falls in love with him.
I don't like this story. I don't understand that. I had a lot of trouble with that. And so I started looking at it and thought, well, what if we were looking at this less about romantic love? What if we were looking at less about sexual, corporal love, and we were taking a more divine love approach and looking at this as Kaloff's spiritual journey, or if we were looking at Turandot more as his soul, something that's internal for him, that's cut off the light that he has to crack open.
A key factor in helping her come to terms with the story was a poem by Persian poet Rumi entitled Because I Cannot Sleep. It not only reflected the no sleep of the famous aria, Nessun Dorma, but also got the director thinking about what kind of love the opera could be about.
And it's essentially Rumi's version of Nessun Dorma. And what makes Rumi so special is that he was a Sufi poet. He wrote about divine love, he wrote about finding enlightenment, yet he also wrote about sex and love and corporal beauty. When I found that poem, I thought, oh man, this is where we're going. Once I started looking at it in terms of that sort of faith-based struggle, and we started looking at those parameters versus simply it being about a woman needing a man in order to realize that love is good, it started to change the way I was able to look at the story itself.
San Diego Opera's production brings some new shadings to Turandot, but it also delivers on tradition for audiences.
They can expect grand opera in the grandest of sense. Some of the best tunes that Puccini ever wrote, and the most beloved tenor aria, Nessun Dorma.
As Kaloff awaits his fate, he sings the famous aria about a sleepless night in the city for all. It's a moment when all the elements of the opera come together in beautiful harmony: music, sets, costumes, and story. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
San Diego Opera's Turandot has 3 more performances through Sunday at the Civic Theater.
I'm Hari Srinivasan. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump calls for new curbs on guns in the wake of the Parkland shooting. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Next time you go to the DMV, you may have a lot more control over which picture ends up on your California state driver's license. A bill introduced in the state Senate would let drivers take more than one photo and then choose which picture they want on the license. A fee would be assessed for each additional picture taken. The revenue from that fee would help pay for a new driver education and training fund at more schools.
That's the opportunity. It seemed like a win-win. Seemed like a creative use of policy. Let people have the driver's license photo they want. Let's raise some money, and I think it'd be a considerable amount to that.
Under the new measure, drivers would also have the option to have their photo taken off-site and bring it into the DMV. Lawmakers say it would be similar to taking a passport photo. Well, we're seeing more society become cashless. Coworkers cover lunch tabs using apps like PayPal and Venmo. Others are using their smartphones to pay for lattes. From WGBH News in Boston, reporter Christina Quinn takes a look at how Massachusetts may be replacing the almighty dollar.
At the local burrito chain Boloco, the majority of customers pay with cards. Many even skip the whole wait in line by using the restaurant's smartphone app or ordering kiosks.
You don't feel like waiting in the line, and you just take control of your order yourself. You come take a seat.
The app and their ordering kiosks allow the company to be more efficient, says CEO John Pepper. This is the same company that got rid of pennies almost a decade ago, so employees could spend less time fishing for change in the drawer. And going fully cashless would save even more time. Pepper's other hope is it will offset robbery.
So from a safety standpoint, cash to me seems like it's an outdated concept. What we're really trying to figure out now is the time and the risk and the hassle worth, the 10 to 15 customers? Who are those 10 to 15% of customers? And why are they still using cash?
He's not alone. More fast casual restaurant chains across the U.S., like Starbucks and Shake Shack, are testing the cashless payment waters in certain locations, while some businesses are skipping cash altogether. The Amazon Go Market is a new addition. And Sweetgreen, a nationwide salad chain, went completely cashless last year, except in Massachusetts, the only state that prohibits discriminating against cash buyers.
In a cashless economy, the poor tend to suffer.
Jay Zagorski is an economist and professor at Boston University. He predicts we'll become a cashless society over the next 20 years, but he says it's a bad idea.
We lose privacy. If some high-tech company is tracking my every purchase, they know exactly what I buy. The cashless society really depends on a network of computers that run and can communicate all the time. If we lose power, if our computers are hacked, cashless society doesn't work.
For many people, the notion of not using cash seems bizarre. After all, it's printed on every bill, legal tender for all debts, public and private. But as a younger generation pays for stuff without ever opening a physical wallet, using apps like Venmo and Apple Pay, it's easy to see this is where things are heading. But Attorney General Maura Healey says until institutional changes are made, it's out of the question here in the Bay State.
Until and unless people have no-fee bank accounts, I don't really think that's a conversation we should entertain.
As for John Pepper of Beloco, he says he may test out cashless pay at their New Hampshire location. And if Massachusetts law would allow it, he'd certainly consider going cashless, but try to come up with an alternative for cash-paying customers.
I'd personally be trying to figure out how to do it, how not to leave people behind. Maybe there's a way to load a digital card and they carry that with them as well. It allows them to use cash and us to accept cash.
A challenge this guy couldn't have predicted.
That was Christina Quinn reporting from WGBH News in Boston. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.